Have you ever felt the quiet sting of lost respect, where someone once valued your words, but now they barely listen? Respect is not demanded, it is earned. And just as it can be built through small daily actions, it can also be lost in subtle, unnoticed ways. In this video, we'll uncover 8 attitudes that silently erode the respect others have for you. From the weight of broken promises to the quiet damage of arrogance, these behaviors shape how people perceive you, often without you realizing it. At the end, I'll share one crucial insight that could shift the way you are seen forever. But first, let me tell you a story. In ancient Greece, there was a philosopher named Diogenes, a man who rejected social norms so completely that he lived in a barrel. One day, Alexander the Great himself came to see him, intrigued by his reputation. Standing before the philosopher, the great conqueror offered him anything he desired. Diogenes simply replied, "Yes, step aside. You're blocking my sun." While his boldness is legendary, it's not the path I'd recommend if you seek to maintain the respect of others. In fact, it's a perfect example of the first attitude on our list. But before we dive in, if you find value in these insights, consider subscribing and turning on notifications. Now, let's begin. 1. Overweening arrogance. Have you ever met someone who acts as if the entire universe revolves around them? Welcome to the world of arrogance, the fastest way to lose respect, faster than an ice cube melting under the summer sun. Arrogance is like that one friend who always has to do one-up your story. If you climbed a mountain, they scaled Everest barefoot. But why is arrogance so repellent? Imagine you're at a gathering and someone bursts in declaring, "The life of the party has arrived." Instantly, eyes roll so hard they could qualify for an Olympic event. Arrogance is exactly that. Only instead of just one loud moment, it seeps into every interaction, every conversation, every relationship. Now, let's not mistake confidence for arrogance. Confidence is like a well-applied cologne. It draws people in. Arrogance, on the other hand, is like dumping an entire bottle on yourself. People will flee the scene within seconds. A study by the University of Aachen and the University of Michigan revealed something fascinating. Arrogance not only damages personal relationships, but also impairs professional success. The reason? Arrogant people tend to overestimate their own abilities while underestimating those of others. It's like believing you can win a marathon without training, just because you once sprinted to catch a bus. This overconfidence leads to poor judgment, bad decisions, and, ultimately, failure. Imagine a chef who refuses to taste his own food before serving it, convinced that every dish is perfect. The result? A plate that tastes like cardboard, seasoned generously with ego. But how do you know if you're falling into this trap of arrogance? Here are some telltale signs. You believe you are always right, even when facts, logic, or Google suggest otherwise. You constantly interrupt others, because obviously what you have to say is far more important. You see rules as something for other people, not for someone as special as you. You find it difficult to apologize or say thank you, because that would mean acknowledging someone else's worth. If any of these sound a little too familiar, don't worry, there's a cure. And that cure is humility. Now, humility isn't about putting yourself down or pretending you're less than you are. A Stoic would tell you that true humility is simply the willingness to see yourself as you truly are. Strengths, weaknesses, and all. It is the recognition that there is always more to learn, even from the intern who just started last week. Think of humility as exercise for the soul. At first, it feels uncomfortable, even painful, but over time, it makes you stronger, wiser, and, ironically, more respected. So the next time you feel the urge to boast, interrupt, or dismiss others' opinions, remember this. True greatness doesn't need to announce itself. As Clive Staples Lewis once said, humility is not thinking less of yourself, it is thinking of yourself less. If you want to earn and keep the respect of others, let your actions, not your ego, do the talking. Be the kind of person who listens, learns, and uplifts others, rather than the one who demands admiration. Now, let's move on to the second attitude that silently destroys respect. 2. Chronic negativity. Negativity is like gum stuck to your shoe. At first, it's just annoying, but the longer you carry it, the more it spreads, making everything worse. Chronic negativity works the same way, affecting not just your mood, but your health, relationships, and the respect others have for you. A Stanford University study found that constant negative thinking increases cortisol levels, the stress hormone linked to heart disease, obesity, and depression. It's like your brain is stuck playing a sad song on repeat. But here's the good news: you can change the tune. Psychologist Martin Seligman, the father of positive psychology, developed a simple technique called the ABC model to combat negativity. A. Adversity. Identify what's bothering you. B. Beliefs. Notice the automatic negative thoughts that arise. C. Consequences. Observe how these thoughts affect your emotions and actions. By recognizing these patterns, you can rewrite your mental script, like an editor cutting out bad scenes from a movie. Another great tool is the 21-day No Complaining Challenge by Will Bowen. Wear a bracelet, and every time you complain, switch it to the other wrist. The goal? Keep it on the same wrist for 21 days straight. Sounds simple, right? The average person takes 8 months to complete it. Now, let's be clear. Stoicism doesn't teach blind optimism or ignoring real problems. It's about facing challenges with a constructive mindset. As Richard Branson said, "Don't complain, make things happen." And well, it seems to have worked for him. He owns an island, while many of us get frustrated over slow Wi-Fi. Chronic negativity repels people. No one enjoys being around someone who always sees the glass as half empty. So next time you catch yourself complaining, pause. Ask yourself, is this really that bad? Can I see this differently? As Epictetus said, it is not things that disturb us, but our opinions about them. Now, let's move on to the third attitude that silently destroys respect. 3. Lack of empathy. A lack of empathy is like a superpower, but not the good kind. Instead of making you admired and respected, it makes people want to run in the opposite direction. Imagine this. You're having the worst day of your life. Your boss humiliated you in front of everyone, your car broke down in the middle of traffic, and to top it off, you're out of coffee. You come home, exhausted, hoping for a little understanding, and your partner casually says, "Bad things happen to everyone. Get over it." How would you feel? Probably like packing their bags and placing them on the curb. Empathy is the oil in the engine of human relationships. Without it, everything starts to grind, overheat, and eventually break down. It's what allows us to connect, support, and understand each other. Without it, conversations become transactions, relationships turn cold, and respect quietly fades away. But why is empathy so crucial? A fascinating study by the University of Cambridge found that empathy isn't just a social nicety, it's a survival mechanism. Our ancestors who were more empathetic had a higher chance of survival because they could form stronger bonds, work as a team, and protect each other. In other words, empathy helped us evolve. It's literally hardwired into us for a reason. But what if you're not naturally empathetic? The good news is, empathy is like a muscle. The more you exercise it, the stronger it gets. You don't have to be a mind reader or a therapist. Small changes in how you interact with others can transform the way people perceive you. The next time someone shares their struggles, resist the urge to immediately give advice or downplay their emotions. Instead, try something simple yet powerful. Just listen. Instead of saying, "That's life," try, "That sounds really difficult. How do you feel about it?" I can see why that would be frustrating. That must have been really tough for you. You'd be amazed at the difference it makes. Sometimes people don't need solutions. They just need to feel heard. The poet Maya Angelou once said, "People will forget what you said. They will forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel." And she was right. Empathy is what turns a simple interaction into a meaningful connection. It's the difference between being respected and being tolerated. So if you want to gain and keep the respect of others, don't just hear, listen. Don't just respond, understand. Now, let's move on to the fourth attitude that slowly destroys respect. 4. Fickleness. Have you ever met someone who changes plans faster than a chameleon changes color? Today, they're your closest friend. Tomorrow, they ignore your messages. They promise to help with a project, only to conveniently forget when the time comes. This, my friends, is fickleness in its purest form. Being fickle is like trying to build a house of cards in the middle of a hurricane. No matter how carefully you stack it, everything eventually comes crashing down. People may tolerate it for a while, but over time, they learn a simple truth. A person who cannot be relied upon is a person who will not be respected. But why is fickleness so damaging? Human beings are wired for stability and predictability. It's been ingrained in us since the days when knowing where to find food and shelter was a matter of life and death. A study from the University of California found that consistency is one of the most crucial factors in building trust. And without trust, well, let's just say that a life surrounded by uncertainty is a lonely one. Imagine having a friend who always cancels plans last minute. At first, you might be understanding, but after the third, fourth, or fifth time, you stop making plans with them altogether. You learn to expect nothing, and once that happens, the relationship slowly fades into irrelevance. The same applies in professional life. No one wants to work with someone who says one thing today and another tomorrow. A boss who keeps changing directions confuses their team. A business partner who breaks their word loses credibility. A person who cannot be counted on eventually becomes forgotten. So how do you break free from the cycle of fickleness? The answer is simple. Start small. If you say you're going to call, call. If you commit to meeting someone at a certain time, be there. If you make a promise, follow through, even when it's inconvenient. Over time, these small acts of consistency build something far greater than just good habits. They build your reputation. And a reputation for reliability is worth more than all the wealth in the world. As Bruce Lee once said, "I fear not the man who has practiced 10,000 kicks once, but the man who has practiced one kick 10,000 times." Consistency is powerful. It earns you respect, trust, and credibility, things that can't be demanded, only demonstrated through action. Now, before we move on to the fifth attitude that makes people lose respect for you, if you're enjoying this video, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. If you're passionate about self-improvement, comment personal improvement below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let's continue this journey together. Now, on to the next attitude. 5. Lack of integrity. Imagine sitting down at a restaurant, eagerly anticipating a beautifully plated dish. The aroma is incredible and the presentation is flawless. But the moment you take a bite, it tastes like cardboard. That, my friends, is exactly what happens when someone lacks integrity. On the surface, everything appears fine, but underneath, something is missing, something essential. Integrity is like the foundation of a building. You may not always see it, but without it, everything eventually collapses. It's not about putting on a show for others. It's about doing the right thing, even when no one is watching. But why is integrity so important? Beyond keeping you from becoming the villain in your own life story, integrity is the cornerstone of trust. A study from Harvard University found that companies with a strong culture of integrity not only had happier employees, but were also more profitable in the long run. Why? Because when people know they can trust you, they invest in you, whether in friendships, business, or personal relationships. A lack of integrity, on the other hand, is like a slow-acting poison. At first, the effects may not be noticeable, but over time, it erodes trust, credibility, and ultimately, respect. Think about it. Lying may get you ahead temporarily, but once exposed, your word will mean nothing. Cheating may bring short-term gains, but it destroys long-term opportunities. Speaking ill of others behind their backs may make you feel powerful in the moment, but it eventually alienates the very people you seek approval from. As Mahatma Gandhi once said, "Happiness is when what you think, what you say, and what you do are in harmony." And the same applies to respect. There is nothing more powerful than a person who stands by their values, someone whose words and actions are aligned. So, the next time you're faced with a temptation to cut corners, bend the truth, or take the easy way out, ask yourself, is this who I really want to be? Would I respect someone else for doing this? Because in the end, respect, both from others and from yourself, is worth far more than any short-term gain. Now, let's move on to the sixth attitude that silently destroys respect. 6. Lack of responsibility. Have you ever met someone who always has an excuse? The friend who's always late, but somehow never at fault. Traffic, the weather, the universe. Or the co-worker who never meets deadlines because life is just unfair to them. That, my friends, is a lack of responsibility in all its glory. Responsibility is like gravity. You can ignore it, but it still affects everything you do. And just like gravity, failing to acknowledge it can lead to some painful falls. But why is responsibility so important? Beyond saving you from becoming the punchline of every joke, responsibility is the key to earning respect, from others and from yourself. A study from Stanford University found that people who take ownership of their actions tend to be more successful and more satisfied in life. Surprising? Not really. When you take responsibility, you take control of your choices, your circumstances, and ultimately, your destiny. Lack of responsibility, on the other hand, is like playing who's to blame. And trust me, that's a game everyone loses. Blaming others, circumstances, or fate may feel easier in the moment, but in the long run, it leaves you feeling powerless and stuck. As George Bernard Shaw once said, People are always blaming their circumstances for what they are. I don't believe in circumstances. The people who make progress in this world are the people who get up and look for the circumstances they want, and if they don't find them, they create them. So the next time you're tempted to make excuses, pause. Ask yourself, am I in control of this situation? If not, what can I do to regain control? Taking responsibility isn't always comfortable, but it's the first step toward growth, self-respect, and real power. And who knows? You might just find that responsibility is a superpower, one that gives you control over your life, your success, and your future. Now, let's move on to the seventh attitude that silently destroys respect. 7. Lack of respect for others' time. Have you ever felt like your time is worth less than someone else's? If so, you've likely encountered one of the most frustrating attitudes, disrespect for other people's time, or as I like to call it, the art of making people want to strangle you with your own watch. Picture this. You're waiting at a restaurant for a friend. 15 minutes pass, then 30, then an hour. Finally, they arrive with a casual smile and a half-hearted, "Sorry, I'm late." If, at that moment, you feel an overwhelming urge to launch the menu at their head, I don't blame you. Disrespecting other people's time is like stealing something that can never be returned. And here's a confession. I struggle with this too. Yes, ironic, isn't it? But at least I'm trying to change. And let me tell you, getting organized sometimes feels as challenging as brushing a cat's fur with a fork. But why is respecting time so important? The entrepreneur Richard Branson once said, "Respect is earned through excellence, consistency, and respect for other people's time." And he couldn't be more right. When you're consistently late, you're not just wasting minutes. You're sending a very clear message. My time is more valuable than yours. And trust me, no one wants to be around someone like that. A Harvard University study found that punctual people are perceived as more reliable and competent. So, if you want to be respected, start by respecting other people's time. Changing this habit isn't easy. I still catch myself rushing at the last minute, but every time I make it on time, I win a small battle. So, the next time you're about to be late, ask yourself, do I want to be the person everyone welcomes with a smile, or the one they secretly want to strangle? The choice is yours. Now, let's move on to the eighth and final attitude that destroys respect. 8. Inability to listen. One of the quickest ways to lose respect is the inability to listen, and believe me, it's more common than you think. But why is listening so important? Let me share a story that illustrates this perfectly. In his famous book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, Dale Carnegie tells an interesting anecdote. One evening, he attended a dinner party where he met a botanist. Although Carnegie knew nothing about botany, he spent the entire night asking questions and listening with genuine curiosity. At the end of the evening, the botanist told him, "You are one of the most fascinating conversationalists I have ever met." The irony, Carnegie had barely spoken at all. This story reveals a powerful truth. People don't just want to be heard, they want to be understood. And those who master the art of listening naturally earn respect and build stronger relationships. So, how can you become a better listener? First, practice active listening. Don't just hear words, but pay attention to the emotions and meaning behind them. Imagine you're a detective trying to uncover what the other person is truly saying. Second, stop planning your response while the other person is talking. It's tempting, but resisting this habit helps you stay present in the conversation. Third, ask thoughtful questions. Engaging questions show that you're genuinely interested, making the conversation feel like a game of ping pong rather than a monologue. Fourth, avoid interrupting. Every time you cut someone off, you're subtly saying, "What I have to say is more important than what you're saying." That's a quick way to lose respect. And finally, show empathy. Try to step into the other person's shoes. What are they feeling? What's driving their words? True listening isn't just about understanding words, it's about understanding people. Now I have a challenge for you. In your next conversation, apply these principles. You'll be surprised at how the dynamic changes when you truly listen. Not only will you gain more respect, but you'll also unlock new friendships, deeper connections, and even unexpected opportunities. As Epictetus wisely said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." So the next time you find yourself in a conversation, ask yourself, am I truly listening, or am I just waiting for my turn to talk? If you've made it this far, I know you're someone who values growth and self-respect. Write, "Respect is earned," in the comments, so I'll know you're one of the few who commit to bettering themselves. If this video resonated with you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Not for the algorithm, but so you can continue on this journey of self-improvement. And if you know someone who could benefit from these insights, share it with them. Growth is always better when it's shared. Most importantly, take what you've learned today and put it into action. Knowledge is only powerful when applied. Now, I recommend watching one of these 2 videos to deepen your understanding of Stoicism and human psychology. Until next time, stay strong, stay wise, and keep striving for the best version of yourself. See you in the next video.